Hello, my name is Benjamin Smith with the Bridgewater Community Access Media station. Today we'll be meeting with the candidates running for the state rep of the 10th Plymouth District. We are outside of our studio and here at the War Memorial Park in West Bridgewater. We are taking COVID-19 safety precautions and making sure that we are 6 feet apart from each other. I will be wearing a mask, but my interviewee will not be wearing a mask, just so you, the viewer, will be sure to see them. So let's get started. I'm here today with Democratic candidate Jack Lally, who is seeking election to the Massachusetts House of Representatives of the 10th Plymouth District. Currently, this seat is being held by Democrat Michelle Dubois. As of right now, the primary election date will be held on September 1st. Mr. Lally, thank you for being here today.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So for anyone watching, let's just get to know you a little bit. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah. So my name's Jack Lally. I live in Brockton. I've lived there since I was 2. I went to Brockton Public Schools for elementary school and middle school, and I went to Cardinal Spellman for high school. And I'm at Bridgewater State now. I was elected to the Brockton City Council at 18 in 2015. I was reelected in 2017, and I was reelected with 80% of the vote last year, 2019. So I'm running for state representative. I think there's things that we can do better, things that we can expand upon. Representation is a big thing, and the gist I've been getting from the Bridgewaters is that they don't feel they have it, and that's a huge problem. It's a major part of the district.
So you're running for the state rep for the 10th Plymouth District. What towns in this district does that cover?
Yeah, so we cover the east side of Brockton, all of Ward 6, which is where I'm the counselor now, 3/4 of Ward 5, half of Ward 4, all of West Bridgewater, and Precinct 1 of East Bridgewater, so about a quarter of the town.
Mm-hmm. And just what does a state representative do?
Yeah, the state representative is basically, the state representative is to the governor what Congress is to the president. They make the laws for the state, work on the budget, try and secure things for the communities, help from the state, and they help residents when they have an issue with the government. If like right now, a big issue is people on unemployment. Sometimes the check doesn't come, so you'd call your representative's office, and the aide or the representative would help you figure that out. Something like that. That's sort of what they would handle. We exist as a counselor in a similar way to the representatives. If you call me as a counselor and I can do something about your issue, I will work to help you with your issue. If I can't do something, if it's out of my domain, I will refer you to the person who can. So we're just people you can call to help you out. And there's a lot of ways that we can make our effect known. We can secure more money for parks like this, or we can try and get more road funding, something like that. You get a lot of potholes, stuff like that. That's a big one up where I am. A lot of road work.
Every town, especially Brockton, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
I'm from Brockton as well, so yeah, I know there's some specific streets I avoid.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a good way you compare it. Comparing it to what it is to the governor is what it is Congress is to the president. I like how you compare that. That's how I remember it. But anyways, how is your campaign going so far? What have you been hearing from residents?
I'm thinking it's going pretty well. I'm pretty confident, pretty upbeat. We're going door to door. So every day, I've got the mask. Every day we go out, usually from noon till 8, and we just knock doors, introduce ourselves, hand out palm cards, and see if people have questions or concerns. Mm-hmm. It's the best way to do it. If I want to show you I'm going to work for you, I might as well work for the job. So, we've spent a lot of time out there. That's where I am today. That's where I'm going back to after this, and we've gotten a lot of positive response. People have been very, very welcoming. They've been happy to see somebody come to the door. But the most important thing is that they've been receptive, and they're willing to, to hear me out, to hear my, my proposal, me explain what's on the palm card, and, they're willing to ask questions and give me their consideration. And that's all I ask. September 1st is the election day. I just ask they consider me.
Very good. And you cover all of West Bridgewater compared to the other two towns of Brockton and East Bridgewater, only a small part. But what do you think are the greatest priorities for the town of West Bridgewater?
Well, there's one fundamental one that has to be solved before anything else, and that is communication. We've got a huge problem with communication. The city of Brockton, the town of West Bridgewater, the town of East Bridgewater has trouble getting a hold of of folks up in the state. And what purpose does a state representative have if they're not answering the phone, if they're not doing constituent services? There's a lot of complaints about that, a lot of problems with no calls being returned and not hearing back on emails and things like that. And the biggest goal is communication. As a counselor, I have a policy. My phone number is on almost everything. On that card, there's a website. If you go to the website, it's jacklally.org. If you go to the website, my phone number's on that. And if you have a question, if you have a concern, you can give me a call. And my standard policy is, if I have a number that I can call you back on, I will call you back within 24 hours. You wanted to contact me for something. It wasn't to ask me what it's like outside. You wanted to know what was going on. You needed help with something, so it makes sense that I call you back in a reasonable amount of time. And that's the big one. West Bridgewater's got other things going on. The town just purchased that property on Lincoln Street for the sports complex, soccer fields. They're going to need some backup on that, some help from the state. You got to have somebody in there who's willing to go to bat for the town.
And what do you think has been some of the biggest changes you've seen in the district, not just in West Bridgewater, but also in the parts of Brockton and East Bridgewater in the last 5 years?
Well, that's the problem. I haven't really seen any change. Nothing's really happened. The things that have happened on their own. The town has made its own decision to do something, or the city of Brockton has acted on its own to do something. In terms of the district, in terms of my area, West Bridgewater, everywhere, I haven't really seen any shift that can be attributed to to action from the 10th Plymouth District.
And what changes would you like to see in, say, the next 5 years?
Yeah, I would really like to focus on, as I said, the communication, but also infrastructure. See if we can get more money for roads, pipes, bridges, the whole nine. We've got a huge problem. I know it's especially big up in Ward 6 and Ward 5 in Brockton, but West Bridgewater's not immune to it. The pipes are awful. You're in the shower, you can't do the laundry. The roads are terrible. You've got increased car bills just because the roads are so bad. Something's got to give. And my opponent was the counselor before me, and the ball should have started on proactive work then, but it didn't. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to need some help from the state, and it's not forthcoming. So we got to work on that. Making sure that education gets the money it needs. Brockton's often been given a short end of the stick, but West Bridgewater still depends on that money too. And we want to make sure that, that they have that money. West Bridgewater has a very good school system. I've heard nothing but positive about the superintendent you have. You can't just assume that's going to maintain itself. You got to get some aid from the state. Other quick things: public safety, our police officers, our firefighters. They protect us. We got to protect them. Make sure they have the tools to do the job. And fiscal responsibility. Does the government need to step in and provide money for things like education, the police, everything like that? Yes, but does the government have to do it responsibly? Yeah.
No, that's very good. The district you're running for covers a large part of an urban city and some small rural towns. What do you think are some of the challenges and how have you addressed in making sure both sides feel represented? I know you touched upon representation a little earlier.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Well, really, whether they live in Brockton or whether they live in West Bridgewater, it's the needs are similar. You know, you want a park for your kids to play in. You want to make sure that your kids are going to a good school. You want to feel protected. You want to know that if there's a fire, the fire department will arrive and they will get the job done. You want to know that if you need to call 911 because you're concerned about your safety, the police department is prepared to help you and equipped to help you. You want to make sure that they're the most effective they can be. You know, it's a lot of the things that I'm listing and that I have listed on the palm card are pretty universal. You know, on the back of the card I have a lot of things where I list results. You know, proven experience and results, you know, things that I have done. And they're pretty universal because they affect the town and they affect the city. We want, for the most part, the same things. A lot of the differences may be more political in nature, but in the base part of what a representative is, an advocate for the community, they're the same. You know, we want a good neighborhood. We want a good community. And that's the common ground that, you know, trying to bring everyone to.
Very good. Very good. So we're going to shift gears a little bit away from the district and, you know, kind of look at the state and the state rep role. But one big thing that's been going on, obviously I have my mask on, is the COVID-19 crisis. In your opinion, how do you think the state has handled the COVID-19 crisis since the beginning of when we started going to quarantine back in March?
I do have my mask. We got the space. We got the space, yeah.
We just wanted to be able the voters to see you, but so we are keeping our distance, and I have my mask on, and Jack did have his on before we started.
It is a risk. I have a face for radio, but we're going to do it anyway. Yeah, I think that the state has done all right. I think they've done pretty well, as evidenced by the fact that we're one of the best states in the country in terms of, you know, new cases. We don't have them. We've got people, you know, making recoveries better than other communities. You know, it's a disaster. The whole thing's a disaster. You know, it's a literal pandemic. People are dying. They're getting sick, and that's never going to be all right. But in terms of playing the hand we're dealt, I think that they've done a pretty good job. You know, there are little tweaks that I think could have been made, how things were rolled out, how they've been handled, the level of information cities and towns receive. The city council had to really push in Brockton to get added detail, more than just the number of cases and the number of deaths. So I think that can be expanded upon. You know, but it's a lot of change. It's a fundamental shift in how we operate. You know, especially this is the business of shaking hands. Can't do it. It's you got to do the elbow, the bump, the weird awkward five from a distance. Yeah, do the ankle. Yeah, it's you know, and you're left with the distinct impression that it's kind of standoffish. You know, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, we're talking, but we're talking from far enough away that it kind of feels like you're trying to leave. Yeah. And it's something that we're going to have to get used to. I hope that, you know, everyone's talking about a second wave. I do hope that, you know, we're prepared for that. And I think a second wave will be easier to deal with than a first because we're used to it. But it's a problem. People are stuck up in their house. They got a lot of energy, and we're seeing that in all the fireworks. You know, people are doing something to get out.
Oh yeah, kind of take the attention away. Yes, and Brockton was one of the cities. Excuse me, Brockton was one of the cities that got hit the hardest during some of the worst times. But it is good that, you know, we are seeing the numbers start to drop, and hopefully they stay low. Looking ahead to the election in November, there's a couple ballot questions for the state of Massachusetts. Don't know if they've all been finalized yet, but there are two that are kind of been making the rounds and getting people to discuss. And we just wanted to ask your opinions on them.
Yeah.
One is the ranked choice voting. What do you feel about that?
You know, I would like to sit down with an advocate for ranked choice voting and get their explanation of it. But from what I've seen of it, you know, from what I've read, it just doesn't sound appealing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like like something I'd vote for. It's, you have to go in and vote. You have to pick a candidate, and the ranked choice gets kind of, I just don't like how how elections are operated with it. You get a bunch of number one votes, I get a bunch of number one votes, and then the guy with more number two votes wins. That guy was nobody's first pick. Why would they? It sounds like, a parent forcing a compromise. The way it worked out, the way this is supposed to go is majority votes. You get 50% plus one, and that's the seat. Do I think that this is stemming from some frustration about the way districts are set up? It may be. And maybe we have to look at an independent commission to map out the districts, because you could make the argument that these people might not feel super represented. They could give all their votes to the guy they want, but if the district is set up in a way they feel lopsided, then it doesn't really matter. That's always going to be a discussion, and if they move to an independent sort of commission, then go right ahead. Mm-hmm. But the ranked choice, it doesn't pass the smell test. I don't know. It's you go in, and it's not always easy. Yeah. There will be elections where you don't like either candidate. It might be this election, but you might not like either candidate. You might want to go ahead and write somebody in, or maybe you like both candidates. There are people who like my opponent, and there are people who like me, and they're going to have to make a decision, and that's that. I can't change it, but that's part of life on a larger scale. But for elections, that's just part of the game. You got to pick one.
And the other one is the right to repair bill. Do you have any opinions on that one?
Yeah, I've gotten a couple of mailings from them, and I've seen the ads online, and I've read up about it somewhat, but I don't I need to know more about it. I do, before I'm ready to give it an up or down. From what it sounds like, from what their ads are saying, they're just looking for, to give the mechanics a better ability to do what they got to do. But that's their literature. Of course, it's going to sound good for their literature. So I have yet to see anyone in opposition to it, is what I will say. I don't know whether that's because they're not really getting the message out, or they don't really think it's worth the fight, or what. But I've not really encountered anyone saying no to it. So I'd like to hear from that as well.
Hear both sides.
Yeah.
And to our viewers, we apologize if any other questions come onto the Massachusetts general election ballot. This is being filmed in early July, so right now those are the only two that look like they're on the ballot so far. So those are the only ones we're going to ask our candidates.
They can call me. I'll give them my number at the end. Yeah.
But moving right along, if you are elected, what will be your priorities and goals moving forward?
Okay. Yeah. Well, first things first. Like I said, and I'm going to keep circling this. I will answer the phone. So that's going to be the big one. Priorities would really be trying to secure some more infrastructure money, doing what we can to improve, parks and playgrounds and keep our schools funded, and really just be operating a supportive role. That's what it's got to be. I think the biggest thing is the roads. I know in Brockton there are a couple of places that, there are parks or playgrounds that are dilapidated and they need some work. So I'm trying to focus my answer on West Bridgewater for the for the circumstances.
West Bridgewater has a new park planning on right down in Friendship Park. They're planning on that being built pretty soon.
Absolutely, so funding for that. Again, with the sports complex, the town may need some support on that. They get the $600,000 for the purchase of the land and another $100,000 for a study, but more is going to come to that. You can't just paint some lines and call it a day. So that'll materialize into a project, and they'll need some help. Making sure that the police and the fire have what they need, the school department, the DPW. It's stuff like that.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
And also, if you were elected and had your choice of committees to be assigned to, what would they be?
It's a very good question. I think I would like to serve on maybe judiciary. They do some pretty important work, and also they have a say in a lot of the things that we got to deal with, problems that we have. I would say Ways and Means, but I think everyone would say Ways and Means, and is very, very historically unlikely that a freshman representative gets on to Ways and Means. Actually, Representative Cassidy, who represents a neighboring district, actually has a distinction of being one of the few.
Oh, wow.
Yep. He worked in the State House for State Senator Tommy Kennedy for a long time, and he became state representative and was put on to Ways and Means. That's very good for him. It's very good for the people he represents. But definitely that. There are other places where good work can be done. Children and families, tourism. You got a lot of things that can be done. I really just want to cover as much ground as I can. Yeah. I plan to devote a lot of time to this. So if they want to put me on a bunch, I'll take a bunch. And really, I think I'd like to learn as I go. So if they put me on a committee I don't like, maybe I ask to not be on that committee, in another year, another term, or anything like that. But I want to learn by doing, not learn by hearing. And that's gonna involve doing, and learning more about every aspect of the way the state functions only allows the representative to be more effective when somebody calls. You're just saying, oh, I never served on that committee, that's not my domain, I'll call you back, I got to ask somebody. It's not as reassuring to folks as, if you can give them an answer.
We only have a few more questions left, but one important one. How important to you is bipartisan politics? And if elected, how do you plan on working across the aisle with other politicians?
Bipartisanship is essential. Even in Massachusetts, where they're, it's pretty solidly Democrat up in the State House. It's essential. Brockton is majority Democrat. West and East Bridgewater, more than their fair share Republicans. So there is some balance to that, and the bipartisanship is needed. I have friends who are Republicans. I have friends who are Democrats, and whether you vote for me or not, if you have an issue and you call my office, I will answer the phone. That's what that's what that job is charged to be. You are the representative for the 10th Plymouth, not the Democrats within it, not the Republicans within it, the 10th Plymouth. So that is the job that I will do. Working with the Republican representatives and the Republican senators, I would have no problem with that any more than I'd have a problem working with the Democratic representatives and senators. I pride myself as a counselor on working very well with my counterparts and working very well with the department heads and the mayor, whoever the mayor may be. So I will not go in there with an axe to grind. I will not go in there looking to beat up the governor or the speaker. I'm going to go in there and do my job.
All right. And so we've got some easy questions left, but what would you like voters to know about you before the September 1st election?
Well, I have a feeling you're not looking for me saying I'm double-jointed. No, you know, I've served as a counselor, like I said at the beginning. This is my 5th year, 4.5 years. We've gotten a lot done in that time. You know, we've paved more roads than the average counselor. The average counselor does about 1 a year. I'm at 10 and 4. You know, that speaks to my ability to work with people and get things done. But the biggest thing is that I'm going to be around. I'm showing up at events now. I'm showing up at meetings now. I'm making my presence known. If you want the job, if I want your vote, I got to show you that I can work to get your vote. So, you know, I can do the work as a representative. I can do the work to get elected. I will be around. I'll be knocking on doors with the mask, knocking, stepping back, waiting a little while. If nobody answers, I'll stick something on the door, but hope to talk to you. The biggest thing is the face-to-face. And, you know, if I can look you in the eye and answer your questions, I think that serves us both very well. You're more likely to vote for me because you have that personal connection, and also you feel like you can talk to me. I'm not some mysterious figure on the other end of a phone that you've never met. It's essential that the representatives show up, that they be present, you know, that they call you back when there's an election on, or that they breeze through real quick because they got to make sure you remember they're alive. That doesn't count. You got to be present.
Very good. So for the voters, and they want to know more about your election and your campaign, where can they go to learn more? And where can they go to contact you? So do you have a Facebook page, a website, a phone number, email, all that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
You can put that out there right now.
We've got the Instagram and the Twitter and the Facebook and everything. And that's all. I'm 23. I really shouldn't be saying "the" in front of all the social media, but here I'm old before my time. It's all on the website, jacklally.org. It's got my cell phone number there as well. The number is 508-410-0330. You know, I pride myself on contact and communication. I have a personal Facebook. It's Jack Lally, and then there's a campaign page. It's John F. Lally, because that'll be how it appears on the ballot. It's an Irish name. Too many Johns in the family, and then so they went with Jack. But that's what that's what we're working with. So absolutely, I want as much contact as I can. That's campaigning, but it's also introducing myself and addressing any questions or concerns. So if anyone has any, they can call me. They can check the website. I do have an email address. You can send me an email, but I think people like it better when they can call. I know I like it better. Give me a call. You want to meet? Allow me to sit down and meet with you. But that's what we got to do.
Great. And before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to say to the voters? Anything maybe we didn't touch upon that you would just like to address?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that consideration. Michelle and I are the only candidates on the ballot. There is no Republican. There is no independent. The election will be over September 1st. There's just the primary September 1st. The winner will be unopposed in November. So the real choice over who your representative is will be September 1st. Yeah. Unenrolled and Democratic voters can pull the Democratic ballot and they can vote in this. Republicans cannot.
Okay, good to know for the voters.
So that's important because actually a friend of mine's mother was all set to vote. She was looking forward to vote for me, but I said, well, you can't vote for me. So that's just how it is. But I'm running as a Democrat. She's running as a Democrat. It's going to be Democrats unenrolled September 1st, and then it's over. It's all done. So I ask for their consideration, their support.
Well, thank you for coming down to our beautiful War Memorial Park. To a beautiful summer day.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
I'm here with Michelle Dubois, the Democratic incumbent seeking re-election to the Massachusetts House of Representatives of the 10th Plymouth District. As of right now, the Massachusetts state primary elections will be held on September 1st. Michelle Dubois, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me, Ben. I'm happy to be here.
Very excellent. So for our viewers, just to refresh their memory, what does a state representative do?
Well, state representative does several things. We write, we draft legislation that then we discuss and have hearings on, and we sometimes pass. Sometimes that legislation goes to study, and sometimes it doesn't. It dies in committee. We pass the budget, so every year we try to get earmarks, money for our community, money for the services that the Commonwealth renders. We vote that budget up or down. We amend the budget. And then there's a lot of constituent services that we do. This title of state representative that I'm so honored to have, really I see as a way to leverage this title for you, the resident of West Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, and Brockton. This is the district. So those are really the three primary things that we do.
Very good. And can you just tell us a little bit about yourself for anyone who's watching who doesn't know you? What's your background, your education, that sort of thing?
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to tell folks a little bit about me. I'm 47 years old. I grew up in Brockton. There are multiple generations of my family that have resided in Brockton. I have a niece and a nephew that live here in West Bridgewater. I got into politics. I have a career before public service and after of nonprofit administration and fundraising. So I've worked at South Coastal County's Legal Services before becoming a state representative, Pine Street Inn, New England Shelter for Homeless Veterans, Courageous Sailing Center. So in all of those jobs, I worked as an administrator. Or a fundraiser. So my career is in that area. I really want to make the world a better place, which is really what got me into all this. I got into politics not through a drive for politics, but through a drive to make our community a better place to live. They wanted to bring a garbage transfer station into my neighborhood in Brockton, and they wanted to bring garbage from Newton and Wellesley on trucks and then put it on rails and then ship it out to Ohio and fill a mine with it. And through a community effort, we got the very first negative site assignment ever given in DEP's history. And then shortly after, I ran for city council. The city councilor was retiring and called my mom. They knew each other. She had called quite a few people and said, hey, you know, your daughter's just proven herself to really care about the community. What do you think about her running for office? And I put some real thought into it, and I decided, you know, I'm gonna. So my husband and I got married that same year. I got elected to the Brockton City Council in 2005, and I served for 10 years, and that's 5 terms as a city councilor. Then Christine Canavan announced that she was retiring, and I really looked around and I said, you know, who else could do this job? And I knew that I could do it, but I really wanted to see if there were other folks. I really liked my career. And my husband and I talked about it. We decided to throw my hat in the ring, and I'm really glad I did because I love this job. I really focused on the environment and how the environment affects our health. So that's a big topic for me. And I love being your state representative, and I hope I can get elected for another term.
And I kind of skipped this question, but what district does your area represent? What town
Oh, great, yeah.
does district represent?
So it represents Brockton, West Bridgewater, and East Bridgewater. Precinct 1 in East Bridgewater, all of West Bridgewater, and Ward 6, where I have been a city councilor for 10 years, Ward 5, B, C, and D, and Ward 4, B, and C, where for the last 13 years, that adjacent West Bridgewater, I've been a leader in an effort to stop a terrible 350 megawatt natural gas power plant with diesel backup, which would just be awful for our air and our community. So that is the district.
And can you give us an update of what's been going on at the State House lately?
Wow, it's so much, and then it's nothing. So when the governor declared our state of emergency due to the COVID pandemic that we are currently in, the State House was essentially closed down. So operations still happen. I can still go in. The Speaker asked that we not have our staff come in. So my aide actually comes to my house every single day, and we do constituent service and legislative and budget work from my kitchen table until around 6 when she goes home. And so what's happening at the State House, we've passed around 15 bills specific to COVID. around that the governor has forwarded or members have forwarded, and to make sure that our communities are prepared and able to respond effectively to this, unprecedented crisis that we're in, and hopefully coming out of, and there isn't a wave two. And we have the budget that really should have been passed by now, but everything is waiting on something else. So right now there's a HEROES Act at the federal level, and if that gets passed, it is going to send millions and billions of dollars to the local states and municipalities for school, for a whole array of things. And if that gets passed, that's going to change the whole budget picture. So we're hoping at the State House that the feds will pass that, because otherwise we're going to have to close a very big budget gap. And that's going to have to be either through bonding, taxes, or cutting. So until we have a full picture, we're hoping that we can hold off on that until we're hoping August we'll be able to get a budget passed. We passed some bills to allow municipalities to pass 3-month budgets or full year budgets that they can then go back and amend. So there's a lot of COVID-related work going on, and now since the George Floyd murder, there is also a big push up at the State House around curbing the racism that is in our country, and looking at how we can better prepare and better train our police officers to effectively do their very difficult job in the current climate.
And to go back to the COVID-19 crisis, how do you think the state has handled it so far since we went into the state of emergency back in March?
It's such an unprecedented thing. I want to say that I would give us a B if I had to give us a grade. I know that I have been working in partnership with many of my state representative colleagues to send letters, put pressure, and advocate for residents, both with the governor if we think that he's acting either too soon opening up the economy, or too slow closing down the schools, or calling for a stay-in-place order. I was part of a push to ask the governor to close the schools and ask the governor to put a safety stay-in-place order in. And in both of those instances, he really did a couple days or between 2 and 5 days after we had requested. So, I like that there is a daily update from the governor. I think that's really good for the community, that they can watch and see and be engaged. And so I think, we're going to have to wait a couple years to really see how we've done in hindsight. But I think that we've done all right. I was happy that we were able, when Brockton was really a hot spot and real crisis, that we were able to get the state to fund a COVID-19 testing facility up at Brockton High School that anyone from Brockton, West Bridgewater, or East Bridgewater, or anywhere really can take advantage of, and I encourage people at home to do that. I worked with the local homeless shelter to be able to get them tents so they could depopulate their homeless shelter and not have everybody just packed up in there, because that's actually not good for any of us, because once COVID explodes in one population, none of us live in a bubble. And so that's why it was so critical, even for folks in West Bridgewater, that Brockton got the COVID-19 under control. So it's a constant thing. And with unemployment, just yesterday, I got 5 phone calls from people who have been without their unemployment checks for 5 weeks. All these people deserve unemployment checks. It isn't like they don't qualify. But because of the national fraud around identity, there have been some requests for identification to be emailed over after the person had already pre-qualified. And so there are some people that don't even find me for 5 weeks. So I'm so happy that I can tell people at home, if you know anyone that is in the position where their unemployment had been turned off, you should really tell them to call their state representative. Right, we've helped over 3,000 people so far get their unemployment back on, and right now we have 50 open cases of residents who we're helping work through the process. And in total, 7 of the people that we're helping right now have been made homeless because they hadn't gotten unemployment in like 5 or 6 weeks. And, they're on the edge already. And like a lot of us, we're working people and struggling very hard. So a lot of the work has been around food insecurity. When COVID first hit, I thought about, because of my work at homeless shelters, I thought right away about the food pantries. So I reached out to every food pantry in the district, asked them if they were okay, because I know often our food pantries are run by senior citizens, and at the beginning there was, and even now, there's quite a worry about people over 60 and 50, and if they get it, they may not have the best health outcomes. Luckily, you know, West Bridgewater's food pantry really had it under control. I did a lot of work with the Charity Guild. I was able to help them be able to get a community development block grant from Brockton so they could expand their dry storage and their freezing, and as well as just, you know, do whatever I can to be a backstop. I put them in connection with our Brockton Emergency Management, so the leaders at the food pantry could talk to someone that knew what they were doing about PPE and how to protect their volunteers. And now we're trying to get the Charity Guild to help be more of a hub for the local food pantries, so that the Boston Food Bank can deliver food to the Charity Guild that then they can redistribute to other food pantries. I found a lot of issues with housing insecurity, food access, and then generally with very low-income folks that are living in with many people in their homes, difficulty to isolate. So we worked with the administration to be able to facilitate hotels, and when the neighborhood health center or hospital had someone, that they would be able to go and recuperate somewhere where they didn't affect their whole families.
Mm-hmm. So since taking office in 2014, what would you say are some of your biggest highlights or accomplishments?
Oh, there's so much.
Yes,
there's so much.
especially maybe in the most recent years.
I want to say in this, like, because COVID hit in March, and that was like halfway through this term, I will say that the biggest thing this year definitely is the Student Opportunity Act that we passed. That's going to pump anywhere between $1.5 billion to $2.4 billion into public education. That is going to be a game changer. I really wish we were able to pass it at the end of the previous session, but it all fell apart, and sometimes things take a little while. So that is by far this past year one of my achievements that I'm most proud of. One of my bills around transient student funding, this is kids that move around a lot, was incorporated in the Student Opportunity Act. And since being elected, I grew up in Brockton and went to Brockton Public Schools, so I know how school funding, how critical it is, and how it can be really deficient in some of the urban centers. So that has really been a priority for me, working in collaboration with my colleagues, a lot of other ones from the gateway cities, as well as just in the COVID. When COVID hit, I'm a member. Every week I have a meeting with the mayor, often the chief of police, chief of fire, emergency management. And when it first hit, the issue around municipal level COVID data was brought to us by the fire chief, as well as getting the addresses to the first responders for people who are presumed positive but don't have a test. They refused to give that information for a long time. So that getting a bill passed to require information around local level COVID spread is something that I'm most proud of from the legislative aspect in this last session.
And if so, it sounds like if you're re-elected, you're going to have a lot of goals moving forward. Anything else you envision if you're re-elected? Any goals or future plans?
Yes. So 106 in West Bridgewater really needs some help. I'm mostly targeting West Bridgewater. I know that this might be aired in East Bridgewater and Brockton too, but since we're in West Bridgewater, I really want to focus on 106. I want to help fund the East Street light that's there. This budget cycle, since the budget cycle is late, I'm trying to get $20,000 for the finishing touches at Friendship Park. They did a great job there, just raising that money privately. It's a pretty amazing group. I want to finish the West Bridgewater Rail Trail, and I want to the LED light switch over here in West Bridgewater. We've already done it in Brockton, and it's saving us a lot of money, and it's also very good because it brightens the place up at night. So I'm going to work on that, and just more constituent services. I have monthly office hours in every single part of the community. Since COVID hit, I've moved them online, and I know that's not as much, maybe for some people is better. But I do First Fridays at 11 o'clock where I'll video on a topic. And so if you want to check out my Facebook page at Rep Dubois, I think it's at Rep Dubois. But if you Google search State Representative Michelle Dubois Facebook, you'll find it. I try to keep a lot of updated information there.
And speaking of bipartisan politics, and how important do you think? Well, how important do you think bipartisan politics is? And what are your goals or working across the aisle with other politicians of different parties?
Well, when I was a city councilor, it's a nonpartisan thing for 10 years, and, most of us were Democrats. I'll just be honest here. But now that I'm a state representative, the State House doesn't have a lot of Republicans. I like most of the Republicans. I don't have a problem with them. And quite a few times, I voted with the Republicans no on the gas tax. A lot of the Republicans voted yes, but Governor Baker was planning on, I think, vetoing it, but it didn't get to that point because we were able to stop it before. There was a bill to allow people to get together and create their own districts and then start taxing people within the districts. And so that's like taxation without representation. And I voted no on that. And most of my Democratic colleagues voted yes on that. I really advocated for a permanent tax holiday weekend. And most of my Democratic colleagues voted no to make it permanent, and I voted yes to make it permanent. So fiscal responsibility and those types of issues for middle-income people, sometimes I will cross the aisle on those things. I'm a progressive person. I'm a liberal person. I really like to focus on vulnerable populations being able to access our government and services that they need so they can fulfill their full potential. And so I think it's important, but if you have ideological differences, I think it's also important to have dialogue and respect one another's opinion and realize that you're not always going to agree on everything, but that doesn't mean the other person is a bad person.
Mm-hmm. And as a state rep, what committees have you sat on? And are there any other committees that you have a desire to join if maybe you were reelected?
So every term I've been on the bonding and regionalization committee. I really enjoy that committee, having been on the city council that got Brockton from an A to a AAA. I understand the importance of bonding. And actually with the Student Opportunity Act, I'm really pushing that if we don't get the money through the HEROES Act, that we bond out the first year of the 7-year implementation over a 5-year short-term bond. Hopefully the millionaire's tax will kick in, and definitely our economy is going to kick back in once we get a vaccine, and we'll be able to pay that back. Bonding is very important. I'm on the municipalities committee right now. I'm on steering and policy. The veterans committee I've been on, and I would like to get back on that committee. Committee work is important, but the way the State House is right now, the consolidation of power in the leadership, good old boys can be Republican or Democrat. Good people can be Republican or Democrat, and corrupt politicians can be Democrat or Republican. And so, for me, the idea is to fight for transparent government, no matter which side it's on, for good government, and to make sure that there is no corruption. And I've been rooting out corruption since day one. That's why I got into the fight against the power plant. That's why I got into the fight against the trash transfer station. That's why I didn't want private groups to be able to tax our citizens without any elected representation. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it did. A couple questions we got going on for the upcoming November elections. We got a couple ballot questions. As of right now, we are filming in mid-July, so there are only 2 proposed ballot questions right now. There might be some more, but we're just going to ask the ones that are right around the proposal. So the first one is on the ranked choice voting. What are your opinions on that?
So when you look at ranked choice voting as a theory, I support it. Of all my colleagues in my Brockton delegation, this is anybody that's a state rep or a state senator, I'm the only one that would have won on the first ballot. I've always won with 51% of the vote. God hope and pray that I'll be able to do that again. And so I like that question, but it would take a lot of, it's more difficult. So there's a lot of education that needs to go into it. The right to repair, I support the right to repair question. I support the ranked choice voting question as well. It's just a little bit more complicated. I do support it though.
I got it. Just wanted to get your opinions on those coming up. There might be some more later on by November, but those are just, as of right now, those are the only 2 that are supposedly going to be on the ballot come November. We're moving along. What are some of the big changes you've seen in the district since you've been elected?
Since I've been elected is a long time, and so when I was a city councilor for my district, I really focused on single-family home development. Development is good, but it isn't good when it's exploitive. And so I really got a lesson in zoning, in planning and conservation. I'm extremely knowledgeable in those issues from a resident's perspective. And I think that's going to be something that has come in handy and will come in handy in the next term with West Bridgewater, because there are a lot of plans that are kind of like behind the scenes and not yet public, where developers want to put in many units. And it's a concern. And I think that's part of the motivation and the personal attacks against me, because a lot of them actually are going to benefit if they can develop as much as they want, and they know that I will be with the residents always, which I always am with the residents. So the development of the area, because it is such a beautiful place to live, has changed, and it's going to change even more. And we have to make sure that what the residents that live here want is what happens. So the attractiveness of West Bridgewater and moving to Brockton, East Bridgewater, has definitely gone up since I took office, because the cost of living in Boston is out of this world expensive. Everybody's moving to our area from Boston because they just can't afford even a very small condo there. So development and the cost of living is significant, and our economy once was trucking along. I mean, we were above benchmarks, and then COVID hit. So it's weird, because before COVID we were going in a really good position, and now that COVID has hit, we are hoping that once we get a vaccine and we get back on track, that we'll kick right back in and our economy will go right up. But that's something that's also an unknown. So those are two things that have changed quite a bit in our district.
And looking to the future with the state, what changes would you like to see in Massachusetts in the next 5 years?
You know, I would really like to see more transparency in our government. So I would really like the state reps and the state senators and the governors to have some sort of response to our constituents around the Freedom of Information Act request. Right now we're exempted from that. I actually had to put in a Freedom of Information Act request with Massasoit Community College to get information about a lot in Brockton that the state was planning on selling, because a colleague would not give me that information, and it should have been public. So even I sometimes come up to a stumbling block. So I really like to see more transparency. I would like to see a more open legislature in general, where power isn't so consolidated in just a few hands, and I'm really fighting for that. I want my environmental justice bill passed, so people can, have access to the process of when dirty businesses get permitted in their community, that they have a right to speak up and understand the process. I have a lot of bills that I hope we can get passed. I want the millionaire's tax to get passed. We really need to fund our education system, and we really need to pump more money into our transportation system. So those are some of the things that I think that we really need to focus on in the coming years. I personally have a goal to redo every single playground in the district. So far I've been able to redo 4. So that's another one of my goals. And just continue constituent services and being there for people.
Yeah. Great. And we got a new playground coming up in West Bridgewater.
Oh, yeah, that's West Bridgewater. Yeah. The town is really doing a good job at helping improve these green spaces, and the purchase of the farm that there's a goal to put in soccer fields at. I think that's also wonderful. I will try to help with that. Getting 106 so it's not just a congested mess during certain parts of the day is something that we're really going to have to focus on. Figuring out the dumping on River Street that a lot of residents are concerned about. I'm concerned about it too. We really need to force the municipality and the elected town officials and the state and the DEP to respond to that issue, because that's an environmental issue. Some of the folks that live in the trailer park, they're really having some significant issues, the senior citizens, around how they're able to sell their trailer and some kind of water bill issues. And I think we really need to get that tied up. I mean, I've been trying to figure that out with them, and I've hit really a few stumbling blocks that are really verging on unethical with information release and getting them, because they're senior citizens. We really have to try to help them to live healthy and be empowered to make sure that their living standards are just like yours and mine, and not exploitive. So I want to work on that over the next 5 years. It's another priority. It's a challenge that we have to double down on.
And we only have a couple questions left, but what would you like voters to know most about you before September 1st?
So, I want voters to know that I'm a fighter for you. Like I said, I grew up in Brockton. I graduated from Brockton Public Schools. I went on and I got my bachelor's degree from Mass College of Liberal Arts. I have a full career in nonprofit administration and fundraising. I'm married. I own a home. I know what it's like to pay a bill. I know what it's like to pay a water bill. You can look at my record on the city council as well as the state house. My votes have been fiscally conservative to protect working people, and so I do not like to push taxes onto people unless there's broad consensus around it. I am a corruption fighter, so sometimes I get targeted for lies because I'm out there trying to stop a 350 megawatt gas power plant that's going to make a lot of investors millions and billions of dollars, but it's not going to make you or me any money. And if your kid has asthma, it's only going to make it worse. There was shenanigans with Brockton's utilization of CDBG money many years ago, and I exposed that, and I brought it to the feds, and we got that corrected. This was many years ago. So I want you to know that I'm here for you. My number one priority is constituent services. Like I said, since March, we've worked with 3,000 people who have called my office around one issue or another, sometimes it's like child custody. There's so many things. A senior citizen, you're caring for your parents and you're at your wit's end. You don't know where to go. You've already tried so many other places. You could call me. I know where to get you in contact with the folks that can help, and I won't give up until we can get you justice. I'm really a grassroots person, and I'm here for you, and that's really what I want people to know. I'm here for you. You can call me. My number is 774-274-1344. And I'm honored to be your state representative. I ask for your vote on September 1. I will always do my best. I'm always open to conversation, and I want to work on projects that you find important, and work on bills that you find important, and get earmarks that you find important. And so I want to hear from you.
Great. And if anybody watching wants to know more about your campaign, do you have a website, a Facebook page? I know you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier in our interview, but you just want to remind them if they want to go online or call you on the phone. I know you just kind of said your phone number, but you want to say it again?
Yeah, so my number is 774-274-1344. The State House is closed, or I give you that telephone number. I have a Facebook page. We're working on our website launch, reworking it right now, but honestly, if you went to my Facebook page, you would get all the information you need. I have tons of mailing information, so if you wanted to call, I could send you some information about me in the mail. You could Google search. I mean, a lot of the right wing really have put out some nasty stuff, but Google search me, because there's a lot of good stuff out there too. I work really hard. I'm really trying my best, and I think we're getting results. Our school funding is up. We're able to pace that Student Opportunity Act. I have proven through my actions that I'm willing to stand up to power, be it the Democratic leadership in the House or the multinational conglomerate that's trying to, exploit our community so we can make money, and it isn't in the best for us. So I'm there for you. I'm a fighter, and I want to do whatever I can to make West Bridgewater and the whole district, Brockton and East Bridgewater, a better place.
Great. And before we wrap up, is there anything else that we didn't touch upon that maybe you want to address or say before we end?
I could go on forever. I want to say that, as an example, sometimes things take a while. I was a city councilor, and there was an intersection where we've had 5 fatalities. I worked with the residents. We asked the Traffic Commission to look into that. We got Old Colony Planning Council to do a study like they did at 106. We were able to get that intersection on the state tip list. Then the construction is starting right now. It's actually happening. Brockton's going to have its first roundabout ever. And so it was a long process, but I want people to know that I'm in it for the long haul. So right now, we're still fighting this natural gas power plant. It's been 15 years. For 7 of those years, the power plant sued me and 7 other people for $68 million. It was total fraudulent, and they finally had to drop it when it got so high up that the judge was like, this is ridiculous. So I'm in it. I'm not afraid. I've got a thick skin, and what I'm in it for is I'm in it for you and me. And so I guess that's really what I want to stress. I'm here for you, and whatever I can do, I want to do. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you for coming out here and talking with us and sharing with the voters. This is Michelle Dubois, the Democratic incumbent for the 10th Plymouth District. Well, that concludes our show for today. We hope you enjoyed it and got a lot of information from both candidates. Again, that is Jack Lally and the incumbent Michelle Dubois, both Democrats running as for state rep of the Massachusetts 10th Plymouth District. The elections will be held on September 1st, and absentee ballots will be mailed out to all Massachusetts residents this year, and early voting will be available from August 22nd to August 28th. Thank you for watching.